We got to it. Okay. Again, so thanks for the introduction, everyone, and thanks again for hosting us and inviting us, actually. Yeah, I'm Thomas, and joined with Ninon. Of course, some of you probably already know Ninon. Today, we're going to be taking you on a journey. It's going to be a journey about our quest, and this is it's actually a quest, not a question. Just that was my error. So a quest to maximize every click and to boost conversion rate in the Proximus checkout flows. A disclaimer: there are going to be highs, there are going to be lows. There's as much desperation as there is joy. So bear with us because we're reliving it. It's probably for you the first time. So there might be a few tears. So just you might get emotional. So just be sure that Okay. So once upon a time, there were two UX UI designers. Both actually quite a few similarities. No.
A little bit.
Yeah. So we're both non-Belgian, as you can probably hear from my accent. I'm a weird hybrid of things. We both have a degree in anthropology. Strange enough, one of the first people I've met actually within the field of UX as well. But one of the differences that we have is that we work in slightly different teams at Proximus. And I've also forgot to mention that we've both been working at Proximus for pretty 3.5 years.
Something like this,
3.5 years. Anyway. We work in slightly different teams. So where I work in what's called a value proposition team, where the main goal is to sort of grow our residential and small enterprise market by offering personalized offers for new and existing customers. Ninon's scope is a little bit different.
Yeah, so I come from a team called OmniSales, and we handle basically all of our sales channels. So it's physical, of course, it's digital as well. Today, of course, the focus will be a lot more digital. And as I said, we're very technical, so we have devs, we have analysts, we have all the types of experts that you can imagine that do more technical stuff. That's us. So we're really focused on everything that's a bit mobile first, reusable journeys, things are templatized. And I mentioned that we work on different channels, but we work for different brands as well. So Scarlett, for instance, we do. And different segments. So customers like you and I are mostly residential customers, but also for small enterprises. And in that regard, Thomas was detached to us to represent the interest of his team while we were working on our big projects. Now, I've been talking a lot about us, but what do we do? Full disclaimer, this presentation was made for Content Square, so you'll see Content Square heavily featured. This is not a plug. But we are... But this is a presentation about conversion, of course. That means analytics. And actually, in our daily life, we look at analytics pretty much every day. So we have two main tools, Adobe and Content Square. What do we use them for? Well, every time we put a design in production, which happens quite a lot, we try to see, okay, what's the impact of it? Is it increasing any numbers that we're looking at? Is it impacting our conversion rate, for instance? So it's something that, we do, I think, very regularly. Of course, we're not data experts. We have our own data experts. They make really beautiful reports, quite deep dive as well. But for us, we like to have a bit of a sanity check here and there.
Complex sometimes.
Yeah, complex sometimes.
But they're great.
Okay, now, what do we actually work on? So we work on our sales flows. So at this point in our story, we had redesigned, redeveloped, and also put in production most of our sales flows. So it means today, if you decide to become a Proximus customer for mobile, internet, or pack, you will go through a flow that we have actually designed. Now, what does it look like, you may wonder. Here's a preview. I invite you to all become customers in case you want the full design. Shameless plug. Also good for our numbers, so I see our lead was like, yeah, good job. I want to raise. So you might arrive on a landing page. So we will represent the main USPs, for instance, fastest internet in Belgium. So it can be for a pack, for an internet. And then if you decide to go to the next step, you might actually go to more personalization, more configuration. Now let's say you are convinced and you decide to order. You will arrive on the identification step. So you probably know this, you see it quite a lot. This is actually a legal requirement that protects you and us from fraud. So something very important. And then you will move on to the checkout where you can finalize your order. Now, and we'll finish up with the boring stuff and go to the meat of the topic. But of course, we talk about sales, quite important. Proximus, we're a sell company, so a lot of people are really interested in what we're doing and how we are actually impacting our sales. So we have two, let's say, touch points, a weekly one where everyone impacting sales actually gathers together and sees, okay, what were the results of last week, which campaigns are we doing, is it working or not, deep dives again from our data experts. And then once a month, we do a review on our A/B test backlog and we see what we're going to put in production.
Yeah, and so with that in mind, we had started redesigning the different flows. We'd put some into production. The deployment was going pretty well. We received some feedback from our trusted data analyst, as you can see on the screen here, with a message that would actually change our luck. And this is a bit where the presentation is going.
Okay, we noticed the click-through rate is the lowest on the identification step of the checkout.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, Ninon already went a bit into the journey, but the identification step, so you have the upper funnel here where you're really doing like the discovery, the personalization. The identification step is really kind of like the link between the upper funnel and the lower funnel. You can kind of think of it as like the drawbridge between the lands and a castle, right? So the land being outside and scary place, and then the castle becoming a Proximus customer, of course. And the thing is, yeah, this step actually is right splat bang in the middle of the end-to-end journey, right? And as Ninon said again, it's a legal requirement. We need to know who is ordering. It's both protecting Proximus, but also the customer. And so that's exactly where the problem was lying. So we couldn't, of course, just remove the step. We needed to go further into it. So we went back to our team with the message from our data analyst, and of course, everyone decided to act immediately.
Ninon and Thomas, your mission is to dive deeper into the identification step and suggest design updates with minimum technical impact.
So something we've never heard before, right? Okay, and so again, this is a bit how the story goes, and you can see we did like a little journey here. There are ups and downs, as I said, and again, this is really about our quest to maximize every click and improve conversion in the newly designed Proximus checkout flow.
Act 1, Houston, we have a problem.
Okay, so how did we approach this challenge? Well, again, thanks to our collaborative way of working with our data analysts, we decided to do a kind of deep dive into this step, right? So you can see it here. You have 3 different identification methods. So this is really a part of the whole method there, the whole step, sorry, in the checkout flow. So what did our analysis show us? Well, it showed pretty terrible performance when it came to this step. So one thing we didn't mention was actually this step. Again, visualize that journey. Remember where it is. It's right in the middle of the full end-to-end journey. It's really, again, that step. It's the bridge between the upper funnel and the lower funnel. And actually, this step was managed by an external team. So a team actually in Luxembourg. Actually one of the most beautiful things about this step was that all of this information was contained within an iframe. So I don't know if anyone knows what an iframe is, but if you don't know what an iframe is, it's basically a screen within a screen, right? So you have the screen, and then you have the screen. If you're familiar with iframes, what you know is that, they're really perform really badly, especially when it comes to loading times, but also just performance. You need to get the data from one server, push it to the front end, ensure that it's being displayed correctly on whatever device the user is using at that time. Really poor performance, essentially. And obviously, no surprise, not particularly user-friendly, right? If you have a frame within a frame, depending on the device that you're using, that frame may not be dynamic. It may not actually fit to the device. And actually, that's what we found when we did user testing with the step that was in production, that actually in many cases, especially on mobile, that some of the methods even were actually not even visible within the iframe, right? And what I also forgot to mention was that within this iframe, and you can't see it here, that actually the main call to action was below here, right? So if you're on a mobile device, you can't see the identification methods, you can't see the main call to action, you're not going forward, right? So all in all, a bit of a mess there. But again, also when it comes to data, right? So this step is managed by an external team. There's actually no way for us to really have any idea about like what the user is really doing here, right? We are not able to integrate any of the tools that we use, so Content Square, Adobe, or really limited amount, get really limited amount of data, from this. So it made it impossible to really analyze any behavior and actually address this problem. So again, all in all, a bit of a mess. But what we did find from our analysis, that actually those users that chose It's Me as their identification method were actually, there was a higher rate of conversion. So if It's Me was chosen as their identification method, the conversion rate was high. So we saw that about 80% more or less were using It's Me as their identification method. Who uses It's Me here? Who has already used it before? Okay. Pretty much everyone. Okay. Okay, so we went back to our team, we went back to our stakeholders. Again, with that analysis, went deep dive into it, and what we decided based on that, and again, this is also a bit linked to one of the core values of the redesign, was the kind of 80-20% principle, so designing for the 80%. With that analysis, we decided, okay, let's take a step back, let's keep what we have already, and actually try something completely radical. So we decided to do an A/B test with 2 different versions. We, again, knew that we're converting better when the It's Me method is chosen. Yeah, we want to actually really put that into production and see if that's possible. So we decided to implement an A/B test, version A being the regular one, the full identification, the beautiful iframe, and the B one with the It's Me only method. So a question to you, the audience. Do you think the It's Me only version converted better? Show of hands that thinks it did. Okay. Show of hands thinks it, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Wow, thank you guys. So much stress.
That's a really, yeah, okay. Well, no, yeah, it didn't. Well, kinda, but the data was a bit murky, right? So we went to our trusted Adobe Analytics, because this is, we wanted to compare not apples, conversion rate, of course, but wanted to compare the same kind of thing. So we used the same dashboard, the same methods so we could have on both versions, right? So we went to Adobe Analytics and took the data from there. And what did we find? Well, we saw a slightly higher conversion rate on It's Me for users that used mobile, right? But we saw slightly worse performance on users that were using a desktop and going with the It's Me only version. So the hypothesis here is that, okay, if you've ever used It's Me before, and it seems like quite a lot of you have, of course, you need your device, you need your smartphone to identify. So you need to go to the app, you need to do this. So much easier, obviously more convenient if you're already using a mobile device. But of course, if you're using a desktop, yeah, it's a bit more friction. You've got to reach for your device, take it off the charger, open it with your face, like go to the app, like do the whole thing. So it's a bit more of a blocker there. So that was taken into account. But also, the data was a bit murky because we couldn't necessarily get all of the data, especially when it depends on different operating systems, for example, or browsers, right? We can't get the data. We weren't able to obtain data from Safari, for example. So again, we went back to our team, and they deliberated, and we deliberated. And we decided, okay, we're going to go with the It's Me only version. Now, you may be thinking, what the fuck? Like, you did an A/B test, and you're like, changing your strategy completely. Well, actually, yeah, it sounds hasty, it sounds crazy. But there are actually a number of reasons that we did it like this. The first one, as I mentioned before, we saw really poor performance issues. But also, when it came to having one identification method, well, that's a lot less maintenance than having 3, right? So upkeep became simpler, became more efficient. In addition to that, we'd have more flexibility. So given that that step is right in the middle of the end-to-end journey, we could already take out, or rather we could already have direct impact there, because it's really the primary element linking, again, the upper funnel and the lower funnel. And by removing the team in Luxembourg that were actually accountable for this, we could really take back our full accountability and control over this, and design and implement designs and optimize faster. Also, again, going back to the kind of 80-20 core value of the redesign, we designed it again for the majority. So we were minimalizing friction there. With the other identification methods, there was a lot more, even higher drop-off. And so that was also aligning with this kind of growing trend of digital adoption, let's say. So we're really responding to the behavior, the trends from our users that we saw within our analysis as well. And of course, linking it back to data, because this is a presentation really about data, whether you like it or not. Actually doing this, we could integrate our tools. So we could really have, we could integrate Content Square, we could go full swing into Adobe Analytics, Splunk as well, what we also use. And this would give us a much more rich understanding of user behavior, and would also help us to understand and, again, improve the conversion, which, if you remember, this was the initial message from our team.
All right, so our team came to us and said, Ninon and Thomas, please refine the design and let's reach 100% of conversion.
So we get to Act 2. If at first you don't succeed, try again.
All right, so Thomas has explained, now we have a design, it's in production, and we have data. So what did we do? We went to look at the data. So we used zoning. So I'm not sure if you guys are quite familiar with Content Square. We'll not go too much into the details. But basically, it's a tool that helps us understand where do people click, where do they go, what do they hover on, etc. So I'll describe the screen a little bit, because I think it might be a bit far for you, and then I want you to think about this. So we have a screen. It's an identification step. We have a cart above. We have an It's Me logo. We have the title. We have redirection to say, hey, do you want to use your ID card, come to a shop, or contact us? Then we have the main CTA, and then we have some more additional legal mumbo-jumbo. So now looking at you, what do you guys think the analysis showed? What were people doing on this step? Clicking on logo, clicking on CTA, okay. Anything else for behavior? The links? So yeah, these ones. Okay, trying to find another way to connect. So when we looked at the analysis, we actually saw that this is the exposure rate, so how much people, like how much elements are seen on the screen versus the click rates. So some of you are correct. We see quite a high number of clicks on the redirection to the contact. We see a bit of clicks on the logo, but not that much. A lot of clicks on the card, actually, but this is quite expected. It's the first moment that they really can see the card, and they have to be sure that we didn't add anything that they didn't want to it. But we noticed the main clicks on the CTA, really 29% on desktop, 23% on mobile. We didn't have anything to compare it to, so we were not really sure, but obviously this seems very low. So we don't really know what's the ceiling that we can reach, but obviously too low. So when we look at the exposure rate, we actually have a bit of an idea why. We see that it's not 100%, so that means not 100% of people who come to this screen actually see the main CTA. So quite a big problem for us. Now, once you have these types of insights, what do you do with them? How do you translate them into the designs? Well, not enough clicks or not enough visibility on the main CTA. A bit higher. On mobile, we made it sticky, of course. It's quite easy to access, right? Your thumbs are on the bottom. There was too much clicks on the help and contact. Well, let's put the help and contact a bit below. Let's make it a bit less obvious. Let's hope that maybe it kind of induces people into not going. And we also made the title a bit shorter and more straight to the point. Now, you probably see me coming. What do you think? Do you think this new solution, the one that I just presented, converted better? Show your hand if you think so. Okay, a bit better than before.
Okay, so what did the data reveal? Well, okay, yeah, kind of. It was kind of better, but not really. What we saw is actually, yeah, the main CTA had nearly 100% exposure rate on desktop, so we were getting close to that. And of course, with the sticky, we were doing a lot better there. We also saw actually improved click rate, right? This is really the percentage of sessions with a click on the specific zone, as you can see there. So of course, the sticky button really helped with that. Yeah, we saw really a noticeable increase, of course, on all the CTAs. However, what we did see, and more interestingly, is that, yeah, we saw some kind of strange behavior, right? So mainly some quite interesting distraction points. So someone said about clicking on the logo,
yeah.
You were 100% spot on, because, yeah, what we saw is, yeah, frequent clicks, or what we can call them as rage clicks, maybe, all over the It's Me logo there. We also saw, even though, yeah, we moved, as Ninon said, moved the help and contact a little bit further down to be a little bit less visible, we also saw that it was drawing significant attention. So in conclusion, while we actually improved the visibility, we were still dividing the user's attention, right? So they were still potentially clicking on the logo rather than clicking on the main CTA, so really the main action. So we were not fulfilling the need here to really streamline the focus to the main CTA. So again, we went back to our team, and we went back with that feedback, and we strategized together on a way forward. And they came back to us with another message.
Ninon and Thomas, please refine the design even further, and let's reach our 100% conversion target.
I haven't heard that one before. Yeah, so again, with the valued support of our POs and the rest of our team, we continue to iterate a bit on the design and implement those changes as quickly as possible. So we didn't feel the need to do any A/B testing here. We were pretty confident enough to proceed with those design changes based on the data that we'd had from Content Square and Adobe. And so what we did is we moved, of course, as you can see, so that was the initial design, this is the new design. We removed the It's Me logo, right, to again direct the focus to the main CTA here, so they identify with It's Me CTA. We also added a sticky button on desktop, which I haven't shown here, but we added a sticky button again to funnel really that focus and ensure that we're reaching the 100% click rate there. What we also did is we reviewed the copy. We also worked quite collaboratively with a copywriter as well, with UX writer, sorry. And yeah, we tried to think a bit more in the mind of the user, again, do some tests. And we changed the main CTA from confirm with It's Me to identify with It's Me. So moving away from this kind of definitive action that is confirming something, you confirm an order, you confirm something that sounds a bit more definitive, but going rather with the primary action of the step, right? So the identification element. So you're identifying, you're still not, you're still not signing with your blood, right? You're not confirming. It's okay. You're just identifying with It's Me. You can also turn back at any point if you want. So that's some of the primary actions that we did here. So what you see, here with the desktop version, you also see the sticky button there. So these are the kind of, the global design decisions that we, design updates that we made here as well. So again, question to you, the audience. Do you think the new solution converted better? Better?
Okay, a bit more than before. I see some improvements.
Okay. Come on, guys. Have faith.
Well, yes, but only kind of. Yeah, by now you have gotten a bit what the story was about. We see really high click rate now on the main CTA, both in mobile and desktop. Mobile even higher than 50%. I'm not showing the exposure rate here because all of our most important elements were at 100%. And we actually noticed that whatever we do with help and contact, the rate stays quite stable. So something necessary, something useful. Now, what we can see with all of these changes and the changes in the all of the numbers as well is that clearly the design had been improved, right? There was less friction, better usability, but it's not really a success because this was not actually getting translated into actual conversion. That means that the sales were not getting higher. That means that people were not identifying more. Now, yeah, we're really racking our brains around this, like why is this so? And we have one element of answer. Basically, I don't know how it is for you or what type of projects you work on, but we work in sales, and we see sales are quite seasonal. So during the week, different days of the week, we don't have the same sales. We have more in certain days. I'm not sure I'm supposed to say which ones. So, but it's also the same during the full year. So for instance, during summer, I think I can say, you can imagine, of course, the sales are a bit lower. And here we were in a low sale moment, let's say. So any of the changes that we were doing, even if maybe they were actually improving conversion, we were not seeing it really translated because the sales were a bit maybe lower, so it was not really compensating exactly. So that's how we were, a bit desperate. At that point, you guys might be thinking, these two, they really suck at their job. And that's how we were feeling. Personally, I was a bit tired with this topic. I felt like we had thrown everything at the wall to see what was going to stick, and nothing really was. We had even proposed some more improvements that had actually more technical impact, so you can imagine these were shut down so quickly. So we actually moved on and we worked on other topics because, as we said, we were redesigning, redeveloping everything. Of course, we had other increments to work on.
So then we get to Act 3, and just to make it clear, yeah, we were pretty desperation here, so we also took extended holiday because, just wasn't really going anywhere. But yeah, so Act 3, do or do not, there is no try.
All right, our stakeholders, however, they really had faith in us, and they came back to us one more time with another challenge.
Ninon and Thomas, please refine the design even further, and let's reach 100% conversion target rate. Sorry.
So of course, at that point, we're like, oh my God, not again. Because you see, we're getting tired, but they're not. So what did we do? We're like, we've tried everything. Let's go back to the basics, right? Like, let's take a big step back. Let's go look at dark patterns, which we did not use. Let's go look at manipulation techniques, which we did use. We'll show you that. Let's look about conversion rate optimization, growth design, just let's go back to the basics, basically. So what we had done before, it was removing, right? Removing as much as we can from the screen. And we actually came to this. So as you see, before we were refining, and then we decided a bit again to change the approach. Now, if I explain a bit the design, you still see a card, you still see a title. It's a bit more conversational. How would you like to identify? We have a bit of reassurance. We take your security seriously, your Proximus, so please identify to safely proceed. But the biggest change, we don't have one option anymore, we have two. Now you may be wondering, okay, but you guys said you were only proceeding with It's Me, so then what is the second option? Well, it's identify in a shop. Now, you guys are ordering online. Why would you have a second option that is identify in a shop? Who would go online and say, yeah, actually, I want to verify my identity in a shop? Well, it's exactly why it's there. It's a decoy option. It's made not to be interesting. It's made so that the other option actually looks a bit better. So it's there, and it's here to say, yeah, the other one is much better. You should choose the other one. So that's the first, let's say, manipulation or conversion technique we used, a decoy. Second one, you can see it in blue. It's called Fast and Easy. It's a patch. Basically, we're saying out loud what people can think. So we're just really trying to show that it's me. You guys probably know it. You use it. It's fast and it's easy. But now it's in your face. You cannot ignore it. And then the last thing we use, it's a nudge. It's actually something we use all around in our checkouts. It's pre-selected, right? So it's pre-selected, the button is identify with It's Me. What do you have to do? Nothing, you click on identify with It's Me, and that's it. So now, do you think that this solution converted better? Yes? I see less hands than before, so I'm not going to take this personally, but a little bit. It did.
It did.
So we put this in production. We waited a couple of weeks, and we actually we saw 15% increase on conversion on that step, and 17% on the overall conversion. So that means that people who saw that step actually went much further. They identified, and then they tended to order more. So it was a success we were not expecting. We were just looking to impact the conversion, not necessarily at this step, but not necessarily the overall conversion. So it was quite a good surprise.
And full disclaimer, you're actually the first audience to hear this, because when we first did this, we didn't yet have full insights. So, voilà.
We had some very early results that were positive. But yeah. So our takeaway, of course, is to learn to tame your dragon and appreciate it, but more seriously.
Yeah. Well, some personal learnings first. Well, okay, we've talked about data-driven decisions. We talked about reducing friction, and that's really where we found, okay, there's really a lot of value in this, right? So data can really help pinpoint different actions, but it doesn't necessarily lead always to what you're setting out to do, right? It doesn't always, in this case, for example, it didn't lead to immediate conversion. But it did consistently help us identify and reduce user friction, right? So we really took it as a kind of holistic approach to the redesign of this step, but also to allow it to go further, right? Using data to drive decisions, it's not, about improving for the quick wins necessarily. It's about improving the overall experience. So again, taking a more holistic approach. And I think also Ninon and I were both pretty happy, and despite the desperation, there was also a lot of joy. We got to collaborate quite a bit on this. Work in a kind of continuous optimization, iteration manner, which is not, as maybe some of you know, working in a big company is not always the way, even though that's the way that it's talked about when we do UX and we do product design and we iterate, and well, actually it's kind of BS. We don't necessarily get to do that, right? We design something, we put it in production, and we move on to the next thing. But actually here, we really got to do the opposite. We really got to do that. We really got to go into the narrative. Okay, we get to iterate. We get to work consistently, and we get to learn and continue learning from that. So, and that's of course what we'll continue to do. But then for some more
but maybe a point, that's something that we've kept doing on other topics as well. That's really a culture that has a bit of a culture shift that has happened in our team as well. And hopefully that's something that we can also spread like a virus to other teams. Okay, that was our takeaways, but of course, what should you, the audience, take away from this? You probably know this, every design is actually a hypothesis. It's a hypothesis on what's the best, clearest options for the user, what is the user trying to do. It's a hypothesis about, what are people looking for, really. So data, of course, you guys probably do a lot of user testing, so qualitative data, but also quantitative data really helps validate or invalidate assumptions. We had tested all of the steps of the It's Me design, we had tested in user testing. They were performing totally fine in qualitative. So you see here that the quanti actually helps bring a bit more nuance to what we were doing. As you can see, we also kept tinkering a lot. So we made really minor changes. We changed the copy, we removed the logo, we changed the positioning of the button. And it's fine to do this. It actually helps a lot. And at some point you saw, like, where we were successful is we were able to say, okay, this is enough. We have to be more pragmatic. Let's try something new. So sometimes, of course, you need to go back to the basics. I think that comes to the last step. Our job as a designer is never done. You can improve a design as we did. You can improve its usability. You can reduce frictions. And once it's in production, you can always improve what you're doing.
Hello.
Ninon, Thomas, that was a very insightful talk. I can say on behalf of everyone, I think a lot of us, we would dream to be working in such a data-led way. Most of us just get to the average usability test. And we still have a couple of minutes for questions, so feel free to come up with them. But maybe a question to you. I found it interesting you said that it debunked some of the things you found in qualitative testing. So in your opinion, like, what are the best cases of how to combine data-led design with the qualitative stuff we know?
Oh, that's a good one. Actually, more and more, I think that we can put any design in production, right? Like we're even like today, you guys were testing something, and I knew in testing it was not gonna, in qualitative testing, it was not gonna perform well. Basically, we're putting a pop-up in the face of people, and we expect a lot of people to close it. But what you see in usability testing, of course, it's qualitative, it's not quantitative. There are some patterns that work that have been tested throughout websites, through millions and millions of people. And actually, when you put them, like it creates friction in the experience, but when you put them in production, you actually see the numbers are saying that maybe it's a bit of friction, but actually your goal is achieved, your goal as a company, but also the goal of the user. So I think in some cases, you also have, like you get some learnings. Of course, sometimes you expect them, but you have to know when to push back on the results of usability testing to know, okay, I know my gut feeling, I know UX pretty well, I've seen things in production, and if it is really bad in production, we'll remove it, of course. But you can just go for it and see what the numbers say, especially if it's not that risky, let's say.
Yeah, I think it's also a bit about taking those risks, right? A dear colleague of ours always says, what is it? Proof in the pudding is the eating. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Yep. I think that's how he says it. And that we can apply that to design as well, right? Of course, when we do usability testing, which of course, we're privileged that we get to do that a lot. I know it's not the case for maybe a lot of you. But indeed, it's only part of the story, right? You're creating an environment. It's not, there are different variables, right? So maybe it's an off day for someone, maybe it's a good day for someone, maybe they're more attentive, maybe they had a good night's sleep. They're not necessarily seeing things. They're sometimes seeing more things than they usually would. So there are variables that you have to take into consideration as well. And actually, that's where I think data, for example, also is something that can be a bit more grounding. I mean, actually, more it's the use of both. Actually, they complement one another, right? I think that's really important within our work to have both as a kind of outlet for testing.
I'd say if we only relied on usability testing, we would be the best designers in the world. Oftentimes, right, you improve your design through usability testing, but as you mentioned, the conditions are a bit set. The person is not between their little child, maybe, and then something on the pot that needs to cook. So of course, it's a lot more mastered. They have much more time to really understand what's on the screen and so on. And data actually helps more translate the real conditions of the outside world into how they interact with your design. Yeah. So really complementary, I agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. Yes.
Okay. The goal is to get more customers using Proximus. At first, you had people logging in with It's Me, but also with passport or identity. Yeah. So by deleting the option of the identity, right, to get more conversion, because more people just click on the single button. But in the end, do you got more customers or have you lost customers?
I don't think that's an answer we can easily answer because market is shifting as we talked about seasonality. But if your question is it worth it and do we stand by that decision, 100%. As Thomas mentioned, this has a lot simplified our full development process. We have much more data and we knew what was the trade-off and we knew that some of these people were identifying with passports and IDs. Some of them have It's Me, some don't. And that's why we offered also alternatives for them.
And I think that's a really good point that you make. It's, again, we're not thinking about the quick win necessarily, right? Even though that was the message from our stakeholders, we actually took a more holistic approach to it, like, kind of radically changing the identification security strategy, right? To really take a bit more control of that step being right in the middle, really that bridge again. That was also a way for us to, to pinpoint, okay, what are the things that are working within our way of working, right?
Yeah.
To being dependent on another team outside that we have no interaction with, we've never even met, and them actually not even being privy to what we're doing, mostly on a day-to-day, was really a blocking factor. So it really was like a real shift, let's say, in our, in the strategy and the way of working, I think. And
I think to build upon this, like you said, we're indeed more autonomous, but actually this was costing a lot of money. So at some point you balance having less customers, but you're spending also less money on maintenance and so on, on a quite long time period. So that's part of the, I think we didn't have these types of discussions before.
No.
So it was pretty much the first time we're like, okay, let's see, maybe less sales, but more, more maintainability in the end.
You also have a question.
Hello. Hello. Okay, well, it's fine. So very interesting. I actually had a question on the time you had to do this, because you say, okay, so we did this and that, but I wonder if there was a moment of like rush, like, okay, we really need to get this done at this moment. Our stakeholders don't, like they're a bit, okay, well, but push a bit. So I was wondering on how much time you actually had to do all this.
I mean, so we started this like really looking fully, like doing that first deep dive analysis, I would say. So we started really the redesign around summer of 2023, I want to say.
A bit earlier, I think it was the
bit
spring.
earlier, indeed. Yeah, so the spring. And we actually didn't really start looking at this step until the following year. So maybe late that year, December, sorry, and then really deep diving into it in January, February 2024. So we had a bit of time, right? But as soon as we started doing that analysis, then things started to really speed up. Of course, as Ninon mentioned, we were working like, this is one of the increments, as we call it, one of the projects that we work on. We had additional other features that we were working on through the end-to-end journey. So we weren't able to focus 100% on this. But again, we used data. We continued to test, usability tests as well, to keep it kind of fresh on the radar. It was always like part of our kind of user sprint goals, let's say. And we put that also as for ourselves, even when it wasn't necessarily the case, and we'd already put something into production, we made a point to go and check the data and keep looking at it.
Actually, I think indeed the first design took a bit more time. Then when we realized it was not performing as much as we expected, we dedicated a lot more time. I think so we had a couple of rounds of iteration. Every time, okay, like the analysis and the update of the design, they don't take long, right? What's taking a bit more time is getting into a release and whatever. But of course, this was priority. And then of course, I think in like, of course, less than 2 weeks, we had an updated design. I think it was going into production as soon as possible. Then we did the same thing. And then for the last redesign, at some point they were like, let's start up on it. And then I cried a bit, and I spent a day and a half, and then design was like 4 hours. It's not like revolutionary. So in the end, you see like this goes pretty fast. But of course, we have a lot of validation points. We present that to a lot of stakeholders. So the last design, I think we presented like 3 times in the same week to different people to get it shipped as soon as possible. Yeah. So design itself, I think, very quick. I think the team was also very dedicated to putting that in production as soon as possible. So I don't think I've seen releases that quick in Proximus ever. No. Probably not anymore, but
it's a bit like what you were saying, Anaïs, right? Like a lot of our job is like really like buy-in, it's presenting, it's making sure that everyone is like on the same page, aligned, and going forward with the same vision, right? And that truly that resonates here, right? That was really part of the part of the project, let's say. So
Okay. So we're gonna have a break. We just want to make sure everyone has enough time. But if you have any questions for Ninon and Thomas, they're certainly around here.
And feel free to connect with us, of course.
Get in touch.
Go ahead.